Let me tell you something about the Galactic Military Academy. We thought we were hot stuff. Real professionals. The best of the best from 17 different species, all training together on Station Fortitude, orbiting the safe, boring moon of Kepler 9. Safe being the key word here. I am Vorkel, a Thraxian, which means I have 4 arms, excellent peripheral vision, and the good sense that evolution granted a species that never had to worry about predators. My homeworld, pleasant, comfortable. Our biggest threat was occasionally aggressive fruit. So when Command announced they were accepting applications from Earth, this backward little planet in the Orion Spur, we all had a good laugh. Earth. A Class 12 Deathworld. 12. The scale only goes to 15, and 15 is reserved for planets where the rain is acid and the plants scream. But humans had just achieved faster-than-light travel, and the Galactic Council had this whole policy about inclusion and diversity, and giving everyone a chance. Very noble. Very stupid, as it turned out. The first human arrived on a Tuesday. Her name was Kira Vance, and she looked, well, harmless. Small by human standards, apparently. 5 feet and 4 inches, which meant nothing to most of us, until we did the conversion. Barely reached my lower shoulder. She had this hair, dark brown, flowing past her shoulders, and these strange blue eyes that seemed to catalogue everything in 0.2 seconds. Our combat instructor, a Zeltharian named Qrix, took one look at her and smiled. Now Zeltharians don't really smile the way humans do. When Qrix smiled, his faceplates shifted into what his species considered an expression of dominance and amusement. He was 7 feet tall, covered in natural armor plating, and had never lost a combat exercise in 15 years of teaching. He was also, and I cannot stress this enough, an absolute nightmare of an instructor. Not because he was tough. No, tough we could handle. Qrix was cruel in that casual, bureaucratic way that people get when they have power and zero oversight. Case in point, the hair incident. It was week 3. Kira had been keeping to herself mostly, observing, learning our equipment, adapting to station gravity which was 0.8 Earth standard. She never complained, never asked for special treatment, even though everyone knew humans needed more oxygen than the standard mix. She just carried a small supplemental breather and got on with it. Then came inspection day. Qrix walked down the line of cadets, checking uniforms, checking gear, checking posture. Standard procedure. When he got to Kira, he stopped, stared at her hair for a long moment. That should have been our first warning. Cadet Vance, he said, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into Galactic Common. Your hair is out of regulation. Kira blinked. Sir, I checked the regulations. Hair must be kept clean and either short or tied back during duty hours. Mine is tied back, sir. This was true. She had it in what humans call a ponytail. Very neat. Very professional. Qrix's faceplates shifted again. I am updating the regulation. Effective immediately. All cadets must maintain hair shorter than 2 inches, or remove it entirely. The parade ground went silent. This was new. Several species in our unit had ceremonial hair or head tendrils. This regulation would affect dozens of cadets. But here is the thing. Qrix was not looking at dozens of cadets. He was looking at Kira. Sir, she said carefully, and I will give her credit, her voice stayed level. May I ask the reasoning for this change? Hygiene, Qrix said, and his tone suggested the conversation was over. Combat efficiency. Take your pick. You have until tomorrow morning to comply. Dismissed. That night in the barracks, Kira sat on her bunk, running her fingers through her hair. My bunk was across from hers, and I could see her face. She was not crying. Humans cry apparently when they are upset, but she was not doing that. She just looked tired. It is just hair, said Pell, a Corvarian from the bunk next to mine. Corvarians do not have hair. They have scales. It will grow back, yes? Yeah, Kira said softly. It grows back. But I saw her hand shake slightly as she lowered it. Later I would learn that human hair holds significance beyond mere biology. Cultural meaning. Personal identity. Her father had apparently died 2 years prior, and she had not cut her hair since his funeral. Some human tradition about mourning. Qrix, of course, knew none of this. Or perhaps he did. I am still not sure which possibility disturbs me more. The next morning Kira showed up to formation with her head completely shaved. Smooth, clean, her expression blank. Qrix inspected her with evident satisfaction. Much better, Cadet Vance. See how easy it is to follow regulations. She said nothing, just stared straight ahead. And that right there should have been Qrix's second warning. When a human goes quiet, really quiet, with that particular look in their eyes, you are about to have what they call a very bad day. But Qrix was not done. You know what, he said, turning to address the entire formation. I think Cadet Vance looks much more serious now, much more like a real soldier. Do not you think, cadets? A few nervous laughs. Most of us just stood there, uncomfortable. In fact, Qrix continued, clearly enjoying himself now, I think we should commemorate this moment. Cadet Vance, front and center. Kira stepped forward. Turn around, let everyone see your new regulation haircut. She turned slowly, giving us all a full view. Someone in the back rank actually gasped. Without her hair you could see the scars. 3 of them running along the left side of her skull. Old injuries, poorly healed. The kind you get when medical care is not immediately available. Qrix, damn him, noticed too. My, Cadet Vance. Quite the collection of souvenirs you have there. Tell us, how did you earn those? Regulation required cadets to answer direct questions from instructors. Kira's jaw tightened, but she spoke. Training accident, sir. Rock climbing. I fell. Rock climbing, Qrix repeated, as if tasting the words. For fun, I assume. Yes, sir. Your species climbs vertical surfaces for recreational purposes. Yes, sir. How very quaint. The way he said it made quaint sound like an insult. And when you fell, I assume you were caught by safety equipment. A pause. No, sir. No. Now Qrix sounded genuinely interested. Then how did you survive? I landed on a ledge, sir. 20 feet down. 20 feet. Kindness did the mental conversion to standard units. 6.1 meters. And you simply what? Walked away? No, sir. I broke 3 ribs and fractured my skull. Then I climbed back up and called for help. The parade ground had gone dead silent again. Even Qrix seemed momentarily at a loss. You climbed, he said slowly, with broken ribs and a fractured skull. Yes, sir. The alternative was waiting on the ledge. I was alone. No one knew where I was. Seemed like a bad idea. I watched Qrix's faceplates shift into an expression I had never seen before. Confusion mixed with something else. Uncertainty, maybe. For just a moment, he looked like he had miscalculated something important. But then his usual arrogance reasserted itself. How very dramatic, dismissed Cadet Vance. Everyone, combat drills in 30 minutes, full gear. Kira returned to formation. As she passed me, I caught a glimpse of her expression. Still blank, still quiet, still absolutely furious. The combat drills were standard hand-to-hand practice. We partnered up, ran through basic defensive techniques. Nothing too strenuous. Qrix walked among us, correcting form, providing feedback, occasionally demonstrating a throw or a hold. When he got to Kira, he smiled again. That should have been his third warning. Cadet Vance, you will partner with me for this next sequence. Standard procedure allowed instructors to use cadets for demonstrations. Kira stepped forward without comment. Now, Qrix announced to the class, we are going to practice escape techniques. Cadet Vance will attempt to escape while I demonstrate proper restraint holds. Pay attention. This could save your life in actual combat. He moved behind Kira, wrapped one arm around her throat in what we call a rear control hold. Not tight enough to cut off air completely, but enough to restrict movement. Standard training scenario. The key, Qrix explained, is leverage and control. Once you have your opponent in this position, they have very limited options. Now Cadet Vance will demonstrate the proper escape technique, which is to... He stopped talking because Kira was no longer in the hold. I am not even sure how she did it. One moment she was trapped, the next moment she had dropped her weight, twisted sideways, and slipped out like water. She was 3 feet away before Qrix finished his sentence. The instructor's faceplates shifted to annoyance. Cadet Vance, that was not the technique I wanted you to demonstrate. You said escape, sir. I escaped. Using an unorthodox method. An effective method, sir. Oh, this was getting interesting now. Several cadets had stopped their own practice to watch. Qrix straightened to his full height. Very well, let us try again. This time I will ensure you cannot simply slip away. Second attempt. Qrix moved faster this time, got both arms around Kira, locked his hands together, a proper bear hold, as humans apparently call it. Should have been impossible to escape without assistance. Kira drove her heel down onto Qrix's instep with every ounce of force in her small body. Now Zeltharians have armored feet. The strike should not have done much. But Kira had done her homework. She knew exactly where the armor plates separated, right at the joint, and she hit that gap with surgical precision. Qrix made a sound like a garbage compactor dying and loosened his grip just enough. Kira twisted, brought her elbow up into where his solar plexus would be if he had one, then drove her palm into his faceplate hard enough to crack it. She was out of the hold and in a combat stance before he could recover. The entire training ground had gone completely silent. Qrix touched his faceplate, saw the crack, looked at Kira with an expression that might have been respect in any other species. In a Zeltharian, it looked like murderous rage. Cadet Vance, he said very quietly. You just struck an instructor. You told me to escape, sir. You were restraining me with full force. I responded appropriately to the threat level. The thing about regulations is that they cut both ways. Kira was absolutely correct. During combat training, cadets were authorized to use necessary force to complete training objectives. Qrix had told her to escape. She had escaped, but we all knew that technicality was not going to save her. Qrix stepped forward, then let us continue the lesson. Properly this time. This time he was not demonstrating, he was fighting, and that was his final warning, which he ignored completely. Because here is what none of us understood about humans yet. What none of us had bothered to learn about Earth. That Class 12 Deathworld, where everything wants to kill you and the survival rate for children reaching adulthood is somehow still above 90%. Humans do not just survive their planet, they thrive on it. And Kira Vance, she had been thriving in hell for 22 years. What happened next lasted maybe 90 seconds. It felt like watching a shuttle crash in slow motion. Qrix lunged first, using his superior reach and strength. Smart move tactically speaking. Get inside her guard, use his mass advantage, pin her down. Standard combat doctrine when facing a smaller opponent. Kira did not try to block, she moved. And when I say moved, I mean she went from standing still to absolute blur. Humans have this reflex speed that makes no sense for their size. Something about being persistence hunters on a planet where everything else was faster, stronger, and had more teeth. They evolved to be just quick enough, just smart enough, just stubborn enough to outlast anything. She slipped past Qrix's grab, staying low, and drove her fist into his knee joint. Again, right where the armor separated. The crack echoed across the training ground. Qrix stumbled. Actually stumbled. A Zeltharian combat instructor with 15 years of experience, stumbling because a human half his size hit him in the knee. He recovered fast, I will give him that. Spun around, brought his arm down in a hammer blow that should have ended the fight. Should have. But Kira was not there anymore. She had rolled sideways, come up behind him, and kicked the back of his other knee. Both legs compromised now. Qrix went down on one knee, caught himself with his hands, started to rise. Kira jumped on his back. I am not joking. This tiny human female, bald head gleaming under the station lights, literally jumped onto the back of a 7-foot-tall armored instructor and wrapped her arm around his throat. Yield, she said quietly, not yelling, not angry, just a flat statement of fact. Qrix made a sound like grinding metal and reached back to grab her. But she had positioned herself perfectly, right in that spot where his shoulders limited his reach. His fingers scraped at her arm, found no purchase. Yield, she repeated, and this time her voice was harder. Qrix tried to stand, tried to throw her off. Kira locked her legs around his torso and squeezed. Her thighs must have been pure muscle, because Qrix's faceplates started changing color. Zelthurians do not need to breathe the same way we do, but they still need air circulation. She was cutting that off. I said yield. Now there was heat in her voice. Now there was emotion. And Qrix, damn his pride, tried one more time to throw her off. He pushed up with both arms, stood to his full height with a human attached to his back like some kind of furious backpack, and spun around hard. That should have worked. Centrifugal force should have dislodged her. But Kira held on, tightened her grip, and leaned in close to where his auditory sensors were. You shaved my head as a joke, she hissed, and everyone on that training ground heard it clearly. You humiliated me in front of my unit. You mocked my scars. You made this personal. Qrix was making choking sounds now. His faceplates had gone from their normal gray to a concerning purple shade. So here is your lesson, instructor. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried across the dead silent parade ground. Never, ever, underestimate a Deathworld girl. She released the chokehold, but before Qrix could recover, she shifted her weight, grabbed his head with both hands, and twisted hard. Not enough to break anything. Humans know exactly how much force to use, apparently. It is another survival trait from their nightmare planet. But enough to send Qrix crashing face first into the training mat, with Kira riding him down like a professional. She landed with her knee in his back, both his arms controlled, his face pressed into the dirt. A perfect submission hold. Textbook. Except it was not our textbook. It was Earth's textbook, and apparently Earth's textbook was written in blood and pain, and the kind of determination that makes you climb a cliff with a fractured skull. Yield, Kira said one final time, her voice steady, her breathing barely elevated. There was a long, horrible pause. Then Qrix tapped the mat 3 times with his free hand. The universal signal for submission. Kira released him immediately, stepped back, came to attention. Sorry, sir. You did tell me to demonstrate escape and defensive techniques. I was following your orders. Oh, she was good. Technically correct. The best kind of correct. She had done exactly what was instructed during a combat training exercise. The fact that she had also thoroughly destroyed our combat instructor's dignity was just, well, a bonus. Qrix pushed himself up slowly. His faceplates had returned to their normal color, but several of them were cracked. He would need medical attention. He stared at Kira for a long moment, and I genuinely could not tell if he was going to explode in rage or do something worse. Then he did something none of us expected. He laughed. It was not a pleasant laugh. It was the kind of laugh you hear from someone who has just realized they made a terrible mistake and now has to live with the consequences. But it was laughter nonetheless. Class dismissed, he said, his voice raspy. Except you, Cadet Vance. My office, now. Oh no, this was bad. Instructors had broad authority to discipline cadets, and office meetings usually meant either expulsion or much worse. I caught Kira's eye as she walked past. She gave me the slightest shrug, as if to say, well, it was fun while it lasted. The rest of us scattered to the barracks, but naturally we did not actually leave. We congregated outside Qrix's office, close enough to hear, far enough to claim we were just passing by if questioned. The first 5 minutes were just silence. Then Qrix's voice tired. You could have stopped at any point. You had me after the first knee strike. Yes, sir. Kira's voice calm. But you kept going. Yes, sir. Why? Another pause. Permission to speak freely, sir? Granted. Because you were not teaching me combat technique. You were teaching me that you had power and I had none. You were teaching me that you could humiliate me whenever you wanted, and I just had to take it. So I taught you something back. And what lesson was that, cadet? That power works both ways, that respect is earned, not demanded, and that if you push someone hard enough, eventually they push back. Silence again. Then Qrix spoke, and his voice had changed. The arrogance was gone. Your file says you are from Colorado. That is a mountainous region, correct? Yes, sir. And the rock climbing incident. You really climbed back up with those injuries? I did not have much choice, sir. It was climb or die. Most species would have died. Most species do not come from Earth, sir. I heard something that might have been a chuckle. No, they do not. Tell me, Cadet Vance, what do you think should happen now? You assaulted an instructor, regardless of the circumstances. That is grounds for expulsion. This was it. We all held our breath. I think, sir, that you are going to make a decision. You can expel me, and everyone will know that you lost a fight to a human half your size and then used your authority to cover it up. Or you can keep me in the program, acknowledge that today's lesson went both ways, and we move forward with mutual respect. The absolute steel in this woman's voice. She was not begging. She was not apologizing. She was negotiating from a position of strength, despite being completely at Qrix's mercy. Another long silence. Then Qrix spoke again. You broke 3 of my faceplates. Medical says I have a fractured patella. That is going to be embarrassing to explain. Tell them you were testing human combat capabilities, sir. Which is technically true. Technically true. You like technicalities? Do not you, Cadet Vance? They have their uses, sir. A sound that might have been a sigh. You know what the worst part is? You were holding back. I watched the recording. You could have done much worse. Yes, sir. Why did you not? Because the goal was not to hurt you, sir. The goal was to teach you the same lesson you were trying to teach me. That actions have consequences. More silence. I was starting to think Qrix had passed out from his injuries. Then we heard his chair creak. Here is what is going to happen, Cadet Vance. You are confined to barracks for 1 week. Loss of recreation privileges. You will also write a 5,000-word essay on appropriate use of force during training exercises. Those are your official consequences for striking an instructor. Yes, sir. Unofficially, and here his voice dropped lower, you have taught me something today. Several things, actually. About humans, about assumptions, about what happens when you mistake patience for weakness. Sir, your hair, the regulation change, that was inappropriate. Personal. I allowed my authority to become bullying. I apologize. We could not believe what we were hearing. Qrix, apologizing to a cadet? This was unprecedented. Apology accepted, sir. The regulation change is rescinded, effective immediately. You may grow your hair back, though I suspect you are going to keep it short now just to make a point. A soft laugh from Kira. You might be right about that, sir. One more thing, Cadet Vance. Sir? Thank you for not breaking my head. I know you could have. You are welcome, sir. Thank you for not having me arrested. Fair trade. Dismissed. Kira emerged from the office looking exactly as calm as when she entered. She saw all of us lurking nearby, trying very hard to look innocent. He is going to live, she announced. Though his pride might need some medical attention. Pell was the first to speak. You actually beat a Zeltharian in combat. A trained combat instructor. You, a human. Kira shrugged. He made 3 mistakes. First, he assumed I was weak because I am small. Second, he assumed I was helpless because he had authority. Third, he forgot that on Earth, everything wants to kill you, so we got really, really good at killing back. You could have been expelled, I said. Maybe. But some things are worth the risk. He needed to learn that you cannot just push people around because you can. That eventually, someone will push back. Might as well be me. Over the next few weeks, something changed in our unit. Qrix became, well, not nice exactly, but fair. He pushed us hard, but it was professional, educational. He never singled anyone out for humiliation again. And whenever a new cadet got cocky, he would point at Kira and say, "See that human? She put me in the medical bay for 3 days." Never, and I mean never, underestimate someone based on size, species, or appearance. Kira kept her head shaved for the rest of basic training. Not because she had to. The regulation was officially gone. But I think she liked what it represented. A reminder, a statement, a warning. She graduated top of our class, by the way. went on to become one of the most decorated soldiers in the Galactic Defense Force, earned 17 medals, survived 4 wars, and eventually became an instructor herself. And she never, not once, humiliated a cadet. She pushed them, challenged them, made them better. But she never forgot what Qrix taught her that day. That power without respect is just bullying with a fancy title. Me? I learned something too. I learned that humans are terrifying. Yes, but not because they are violent. They are terrifying because they understand violence. They know exactly how much force is needed, when to use it, when to hold back. They spent millions of years on a planet that tried to kill them every single day, and they did not just survive, they mastered it. They learned to be kind, despite having every reason to be cruel. They learned to be patient, despite having the capacity for instant violence. They learned to give second chances, despite knowing exactly how to make sure there would not be a third. That is what makes them dangerous. Not their strength, not their speed, not even their stubborn refusal to die when any sensible species would give up. It is their restraint, their choice, their ability to be gentle when they could be brutal, to be merciful when they could be merciless. Qrix learned that lesson with a fractured knee and a bruised ego. The rest of the galaxy? Well, we are still learning. But I guarantee you this. We will never ever make a Deathworld girl angry on purpose again. Not if we value our heads staying unbroken. And that, my friends, is a lesson worth learning.